All right. Good morning once again, team. Welcome back to the second session. So we were answering the aspect of what critical skills auditors need. I also wanted Phila to also just maybe also weigh in on that one. What critical skills when it comes to digital are you actually bringing into AGSC, and which ones are you actually also training the teams with?
Yeah, I think maybe we can talk about soft skills and hard skills, and maybe we start with the hard skills because the hard skills are the easier of the two. You know, the hard skill, I fully agreed with Teach there. It's around data science, because if you look at the work that we do, you know, data is at the center of everything that we do. In fact, the new buzzwords out there is that data is the new gold, and it's as good as, if you don't mine it, it's as good as gold that is underground. So you need to mine it and use it. So it definitely is the new gold. It's the most important aspect. And you look at the IT space, even in the business space, you made examples around banks and all of that, which is true. But you look at the IT space, the most demanded skills right now are around data on the business side, and the technology side is how you use that data for the benefit of business. So I think data is the big thing. And in SAI South Africa, we are looking at starting a data academy for that reason, because we think that is a critical skill that is required by our auditors. So data academy is there for that reason. Then the soft skill is actually agility. The agility, not in terms of you know, doing your development in agile ways, but to learn these new technologies and learn these skills, because they are here and they will continue to be improved all the time. So it is very important to have that learning agility and that change agility. I think those are the two most important skills for me.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I think when we talk about agility, this is something which even came out yesterday. I think, is it Faith Mary from Zimbabwe talked about, I think, need for auditors to actually be agile. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now having an open discussion panel here, answering questions that we may have. For those who are joining us online now, we have Pramesh from AI Squared. I always struggle with it. Is it AI Squared or it's
now called Sherpa?
Yes,
Sherpa Enterprises. Yeah.
And we also have Phila from AGSA, the Chief Technology Officer. We also have Teach, who gave us a keynote, and we also have online Justus Ongera, the Director of ICT in Kenya. Maybe Pramesh, one of the things I would maybe want to pose to you is, in this digital era, what are some of the things that SAIs can actually adopt to actually remain relevant? Because I think that's a key issue that we keep talking about. How do we stay relevant? What are the things that SAIs can maybe be thinking about adopting to actually stay relevant?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it talks directly to one of the, again, the principle that I mentioned, the IntoSAI principle around SAIs. And being relevant is one of those principles, as is being a model organization. You know, if you talk about just what's going on now, and if I use South Africa as a reference and how you could stay relevant, it is true. Teach mentioned many municipalities are embarking on this smart city concept. Many are very far from that, although they will claim that they well on track with it. But these are big projects that cost a hell of a lot of money. And it's a lot of taxpayers' money, fundamentally, or public money. It's important that as SAIs, we start now auditing the things that make the biggest impact. And you're not going to be able to do that in a traditional way. There's just too much data out there to do that. So I think the first thing is maybe just, you know, to try and break down what you do as a supreme audit institution into two parts: capability and capacity. So if we start with capability, having automated working papers is good, but it's automation, as Teach was saying. It's not digitization. Running CATs using ACL and IGEA is computer-assisted audit techniques, It's a little bit of analytics. It is not digitization. It's not even advanced analytics. We need to start understanding where is the fundamental transactions of the auditees that we audit. Where is that sitting? What is that source data? And I'm not talking about IT auditing of that system, as was earlier said. I'm talking about just understanding the raw data. How does it, what is transaction data? Because what happens in many SAIs, and I can say this, Phila, with your permission, even in SAIs South Africa, is we've become very dependent on third parties as a supreme audit institution. We have to ask, sometimes we have to beg for an IT dump so that you can run an idea. And you're limited by your procedures to the information that you get. We have to wait for months and months to sometimes get information. And then we accused as auditors of, no, you've got all of these findings because the data set that you got or the version was wrong. Or you've tampered with the security of information. So maybe a good starting point, how do you eliminate the third parties? How do you connect directly to the data source of the auditee, which you as Supreme Audit Institution, normally in most countries by law, have direct unfettered access to? Because if you connect to that data source, you can do anything that you want to do. You can audit 100% of the population. You don't have to bring all the data into your environment and expose yourself to security risk. You can run virtualization techniques and store your analytics and your insights rather than having to store all that repository of information. It's just an example on the capability side. I mean, maybe before I move over to the capacity, just one other thing on the capability is methodology is part of capabilities. I've seen it so many times, and so many, even in the private sector, where you have a methodology that's 20 years old, has been brushed off every now and then. It talks still about sampling, for example, and then you bring in all this technology and you're trying to fit the possibilities into this antiquated methodology. And all it happens is it holds you back. You've got to start thinking about what is a data-led digital audit methodology, and then use that as a basis to inform how you embark on a digitization journey. And what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize data access first? Do you prioritize AI? Do you prioritize RPA? Because those things are all tools that harness data. So based on that assessment of what you have, start somewhere. Be agile. Start somewhere. You don't have to have a whole big thing. Start somewhere. Anything, start somewhere. And the momentum will build up. Just a quick comment on the capacity side. I love the idea that you're embarking on a data academy. The reality out there, there's a shortage of data scientists. There's a shortage of data engineers. Not only in South Africa, Africa, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, even Asia Pacific, places like Vietnam, Philippines, which were producing this, are maxed out. So yes, we must try and upskill to a certain level, but we have to think a bit long term or medium term. We have to start building the capacity in size now. So the academy is a great idea. And don't hold yourself back, in the sense that if you're building capability here and you're building capacity here, make the instruments for building that capability and the capacity available to the public sector. Why can't a government department actually, Phila, challenge to you, actually join your academy, funded for it by themselves? They're just sending young graduates into your academy, and you're just providing your IP and skills. They must go back, because we have to collectively tackle this. It's not a individual thing. So maybe I'll pause there, Fredrick.
You mentioned aspects of being maybe size organizations being data driven, and I think starting somewhere. And I think when we talk about starting somewhere, maybe it's also important to talk about starting with someone. And I want to send this question to Teach, and I want everyone here and maybe even the audience to also weigh in. What should a SAI actually have someone specifically who steers digitalization? And I want to repeat this, digitalization, as we are talking about it. Here we're talking about optimization. It's not just automation, but someone who is steering digitalization. What critical role would, I think other organizations have talked about having a chief digital officer or CTO, or does it actually matter the level of this person who is the highest technology officer in an organization. As you are reflecting on that, I want also even us SAIs to actually reflect on this question. Are we having the right people who are actually advancing this? Are these people actually in our management team? Teach?
So thank you. There is a term that maybe we can search, and the term is called a digitally savvy board of directors. So we, obviously a digitally savvy board of directors is a board that understands how to take advantage of these new business models that are enabled by digital technologies. So the tone at the top when it comes to digitalization, it's very, very, very critical. One of the things that I do is, of course, advise numerous boards. And one of the boards that I've been engaged with is, I know I've got a number of people from Namibia here. I've been involved with the Central Bank of Namibia, with the now finance minister of finance in Namibia, who used to be the central bank governor of Bank of Namibia. And digitalization was being driven at that level as a governor, to the extent that he was doing a number of digitalization courses, digitalization education. The governor sat in the whole day for 2 days in a digitalization session that I had with his board. And because there was the right tone at the top where digitalization was being driven, it was easier for digitalization to filter in, because the tone at the top is very important when it comes to digitalization. There is need for that buy-in. Now, should we put a separate position that drives digitalization? Yes, it's important. So with the right tone at the top, with a digitally savvy body, digitally savvy senior executives, you can now appoint a chief digital officer that you can have. For example, you look at FNB, they do have a chief digital officer. They have a digital unit. Other organizations that I may not say names here in SA, they've put up a separate innovation session. But we must start from somewhere. I think during the break, some people were saying, but we have to understand where exactly we are. So I think the starting point is there are baby steps that we can take. Let's make sure that at least our team has got some kind of training that they do in some of these digital technologies. At a board level, you know, I was also a member of a national board in Chicago, and we were driving digital transformation. And one of the things that we were talking about, how about having some senior executives Google some of the, not Google, but actually visit some of these digital organizations, a digital tour. Some of our senior executives can do a digital tour to Google, can go do a digital tour to some of these Silicon Valley, spend a week and actually see the realities that these technologies can actually be used and transformed. But I also just wanted to add something and say how to your point of how do we start to practicalize digitalization. And I want to add a point that one simple thing that we can start by doing is provide continuous auditing that can provide tools that allows us. I was an auditor for Standard Bank for many years. And one of the requirements is that you must do a branch audit. It's mandatory to go and do branch audit. But as we speak right now, Standard Bank has automated all their branch audits. So that is now led to the reduction of the numbers. And how have they managed to do that? By adopting continuous online auditing in their branches. So you can always start somewhere.
Great, great. Phila, on the issue of someone driving technology, how has this worked maybe from the AGSA perspective in terms of the innovations that you have to embark on, and generally also maybe I think if there's one thing that a lot of colleagues from the region always want to hear about is, okay, we hear AGSA is doing this, is doing this. What has also been your strategy on digitalization as a SAI?
Yeah, no, thanks very much. And I so agree with Tichaona. You know, the tone at the top is absolutely critical, because if the tone is not set from the top, you are not going to get the traction or the buy-in from the business that you need. And what we did as SAI South Africa, you know, is at our executive committee, we created this role of a chief technology officer. Could have called it chief digital officer as well, or chief technology officer, or group chief information officer. The name doesn't really matter. What matters is what the role is supposed to do. And we created that role. So that's how I got to join the SAI. So that shows that it is driven from the top. So what that does is that the conversations then in the business will always be around digital transformation. It's always there. Whenever I visit our regions, I visit our business units, and I talk to people, the first thing they talk to me about is, when are you changing our processes and giving us this ability for us to do our work smarter, quicker, and simpler? So that then puts a very interesting pressure on this role. So maybe just to take a step back, if you look at our strategy as the SAI South Africa, we say we want to have an impact on the lived experiences of citizens. It's actually there. We're not auditing for the sake of auditing. We want to ensure that even if it's a clean audit, are the potholes fixed? So, and is the hospital working? Yes, you could have used the money in the way that you wanted to use it, but have you changed the lived experiences of our citizens? So in that, we've got these six strategic pillars or objectives that we call a shift public sector culture. We call our strategy hashtag culture shift 2030. The hashtag tells you that we are thinking of digitization. That's why it is there in the strategy. So the first one is to shift public sector culture, to derive actionable insights from the data that we have. That's not an IT strategy. That's not a digital strategy. It's a business strategy to influence how we shift this public sector culture, to enforce the results of our audits, and to operate our business in a sustainable way, and also to be efficient as a business. So you can see now that actually digital transformation plays a key role. Now, when we came up with our digital transformation strategy, then it had to be tightly coupled with the business. So our digital transformation strategy is not a strategy of bringing technology into the business, but it is a strategy of enabling the strategic objectives of the business. It's a very fine line. You know, you get somebody who carries an iPad and they think they know technology. They will come and say, yeah, we must put this technology in. But does it really serve the purposes of the business? So our strategy is based on serving the purpose of the business. Maybe I can just double click a little bit, I won't be long, in terms of how then we crafted this strategy. We said, okay, if we look at this strategy of the business, we want to simplify this strategy. And we had 4 simple pillars for digital transformation. One is we wanted to strengthen the core of our operations. So what does that mean? Our networks must work, our email must work, we must have a cloud migration strategy, and our audit software must work. It must be relevant, it must work, it must serve the purpose of the business. So that was the first pillar. The second pillar is to take data-driven decisions as a business. As I said, data is probably the most important asset after people in any organization. But if we do not use that asset, we are not going to get benefit from it. So part of the strategy is how do we use this data to take data-driven decisions. There, we are building things like your data warehouse, visualization of this data so that executives can take decisions very quickly like this. The third one is to automate manual processes, because if a process is manual, it is expensive, it is tedious, it will force you to work overtime. Whereas when we automate these processes by bringing in new technologies like your robotic process automation, like your AI that we spoke about. And then the fourth one is how we improve citizen and user experience. Okay, so because we've got to improve citizen experience. How do citizens engage with our office? Is our website intuitive enough? Is it pleasurable to look at? When we put our reports there, is it easy for somebody to quickly go and say, I'm not interested in all these 200 and odd municipalities. I stay in Buffalo City. I want to see what the results of the audit in my city is, so that you can now go directly to that. So that website must be intuitive for the citizen out there. But on the user experience is that the auditors that sit in the SAI should not be logging into 100 different systems with 100 different passwords, and they need to remember this. So these passwords, they need to have that pleasurable user experience. So those were the 4 pillars, very simple, that ensures that the digital strategy, digital transformation strategy is tightly linked with the business strategy, and it is there to serve the strategy. Now, what is most important is that what is this supported by? Technology works. As a SAI, we are not going to come up with new technology. There's no way, that's not our business. Our business is to employ technologies that already work outside and make them work for us. So we are not in the game of coming up with new technology. There are technology companies that do that. But what makes technology fail is that we have not cultivated the environment to be ready to consume those technologies. So change management is an absolute critical support structure for our digital transformation strategy. Very, very, very important. Secondly, if you ask anybody who is in IT at a leadership level, wake them up at any time in the morning or midnight, say, what keeps you up at night? Cybersecurity. I used to have an afro before the guys started the cybersecurity issues, and then I lost my hair completely as soon as cybersecurity issues got in. So cybersecurity is a very critical issue that we cannot lose sight of. You can have your data in the cloud and everywhere, but if that gets hit, my AG, when she sits out there and she talks about the reports and we got hit in the morning, her credibility goes down the drain. So it is absolutely critical that we focus on cybersecurity. And then I liked what you said, that you've got to re-engineer the way you work, because you can't take good technology and put it on processes that are inefficient, because then you're not going to get the advantage of that technology. So another supporting structure for this strategy is to say you re-engineer the process, you re-engineer your methodologies so that you can take advantage of this technology. Otherwise, it's no different from me buying a Ferrari, and where I stay, it's potholes, because then I'm not going to get advantage of that Ferrari. But the Ferrari works, but it won't work where there are 100 potholes from my house to the office. So we've got to re-engineer that. And then what we spoke about as well is agility. You know, I liked very much what you said, Pramesh, that technology is so big, there is so much to do there. It is intimidating if you think that you are going to try to get everything into the organization at the same time. We've got a phrase that we have coined, it says progress over perfection. Let's just take that one little thing that we can afford and consume and implement it in the business, gain benefit, get some efficiencies that gives us money to do more and do more. So it's progress over perfection. So agility is absolutely critical. And then the last one, maybe around the support structures, is around, you know, we must be very careful that we don't put in technology for the sake of technology. There's got to be real, tangible benefit for the technology that you have put there. Then you are accountants, you know this thing better than me. But you know, if you put in technology via your CapEx, you depreciate that. And then it is easier on your income statement than trying to put everything onto the income statement. But you put the capex on your thing and then you depreciate it. So benefits tracking and ensuring that you gain benefit from the technology that you have put there is very important. So maybe in closing, the technology must be relevant. It is absolutely critical. It's not just any technology. And two, the strategy is like this with business strategy. IT strategy supports business strategy. Otherwise, it's not worth the paper it's written on. If you write IT strategy on a paper.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Phila. Although maybe I should have actually probably prepped you before you come here. We usually avoid talking about hair in the secretariat, but for obvious reasons. Although this was the previous hairstyle when with our OPCU, but that's another story for another day. I think you mentioned some good aspects where you talk about having a good enabling environment. I think even when we are looking at ACIT implementations, I think key things that we always talk about is to say, can we start our change management already? Can we look at the environmental factors? Because it's very important that the ground is fertile where this technology is actually going to sit. So it's very important that we have that enabling environment. And I think it's also aspects of the business case that we need to have to say, okay, what do we actually want to achieve? We need to actually have this starting point. And there is one thing that I always talk about when I discuss with SAIs. I think we always keep talking about ICT support, IT support. I think IT is not support. It is a strategic enabler. We should always think about it to say enabler. When we are doing our strategy, how is IT going to enable us, not really support us? I want to get any comments or reflections from the audience. We have got a revolving mic. In fact, I should introduce Lerato there. She hasn't been introduced, but she's working with us in the background. If you look at the age, you can then definitely tell that she's not working with GK, she's in IT. So yeah, that is Lerato there with the mic. So please, if there are questions, there's a question in front here. I don't know whether it's a comment. And we also have another comment from Eswatini at the back.
Thank you, Bobo. I have a question and a comment. I'm Andrew Samba from SAI, Uganda. The first one is about the cloud. I'm a big proponent of the cloud, and I've had every speaker here say we must go that direction if you have to digitize. Now, the biggest problem that we are facing right now with convincing, especially the politicians, about government going onto the cloud is geopolitics. So if you could get me an answer that I will give them, then we shall be home safe and dry very quickly, because it's the biggest impediment right now. We've used Yahoo and Gmail for years and we've had no issues, but he's saying, supposing we start fighting with my neighbor and then they switch me off, then what happens? The next one is a comment, and I've actually had it being elucidated very well regarding exposure versus leadership. I can double click on this and just give you a very short story. I had a friend who had a lot of money and he built a house. He grew from a village. Then he got a lot of money and built his house. But in the village, he had never seen a bathroom. So when he built this modern house in a city suburb, he put his bathroom outside. Just like the way he had in the village, there was a bathroom, but now because it was in a city suburb, he even put tiles. But it was outside the house. So when I looked at this, I was like, the problem he was facing was exposure. So as we sit here, AGs and the rest of the senior executives, we need to expose our staff. If we don't expose our staff, we are wasting time. We gave a recommendation as SAI Uganda to our accountant general about the Oracle Vault. They were so surprised. They're like, how did you guys know about the Oracle Vault? Because like, this is the way to go. But how did we know about it? We just went for an Oracle conference in San Francisco, and it was the best technology you could see at that moment. So we're like, we need to take this back home. So exposure is very, very important. But as I mentioned that, it has to be balanced with the right leadership. Because what happens to the IT fellas, as they get exposed, they want everything in. So if there's no one to stop them and say, this one we can take on, this one we can't, then you will bring in even useless things or even duplicate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are two questions. Maybe we'll get two questions before we get reflections. Justus, please be ready to comment about cloud before the gentleman here also comment on it.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to ask from Phila.
Maybe before you go ahead, please just introduce yourself for the purpose of the panelists.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Angel. I'm from the SAI Eswatini. I want to ask from Phila as to how has the journey been? Because I assume that maybe like all other SAIs, initially, his SAI was dependent maybe on the IT team. So if maybe you can zoom into as to how did you introduce the involvement of the inclusion of the financial auditors as well into being able to work around a digitalized audit environment, and how are the status currently? So how much is the involvement of the financial auditors into auditing in a digitalized environment? Or maybe, like my SAI, you are still dependent, more of the work is still being done by the IT team. So what is the status? If maybe you can zoom into a bit on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Joseph has also got a question there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just wanted to add on to the contribution that was made by OAG Uganda and Eswatini. My name is Joseph. I work with Gordon, unlike Lirato. So yeah, we belong to a certain generation. And and with that in mind, we have a very good percentage of people of my generation in sitting within the SAIs. And I'm hearing this whole idea of saying part of the solution is getting graduates into the system and absorbing more staff that are sort of like technical in this whole idea of technology. But my question is, what of those that are already in the system? How do we handle that? Because they are the leaders and they are the decision makers. And as we advance this technology, are you making us redundant? How are you working with us as the golden generation? Because we are the decision makers.
Okay, thank you very much. So Justus, can you comment about the cloud question? And I also ask Pramesh to comment about it after you. And Phila, you can get it, and Teach, please get that last question from your statesman.
Yeah, let me try and because when it comes to the cloud question, everyone has an answer to what we talk about security. But let's just first look at them from specific areas. What happens when there are breaches in the cloud? I think most of these cloud providers have very secure measures that they put in place so that they address data breaches. So you can't say that we're immune to attacks in the cloud, but the security measures that have been put in place by most of these cloud providers are in such a way that you cannot have many breaches coming into those particular clouds. They occur, yes, but they are far in between. The other things that the cloud providers have invested heavily on is on compliance and regulatory issues. When we talk about how they have certified themselves, for example, we find most clouds have all types of certifications which comes with security, whether it's ISO 27001 or whichever. They will always have something that they have put themselves into and they are fully secure. So they are compliant. And they also risk a lot of penalties. So they have to do that compliance checking on their side. The other thing is that all cloud providers also have a very robust data loss mechanism where if you lose some data, there's always a fallback on that. So it's somewhere that we can also continue having talk on. But you'll find that even if there are natural disasters, you'll always hear that the cloud providers will always be up and running. Even if they go down, they just go down maybe for a few hours. They don't usually have that issue of cloud going out. The other thing that we also have within the cloud providers and you yourself as users is that there's that thing they call the shared responsibility with the users who are there. Because as a provider, as a user of the cloud, I also need to put in my security coming into the cloud. I have to dictate if you have a firewall being replicated in the cloud, then that particular configuration in the cloud should actually secure you both in on-prem and also on the cloud. You'll also find that most of the time that the other issue that the cloud providers also do is that they make sure that the access control systems that they have put in place and the encryption systems that they have put in place are actually things that they can use to secure the data. Even if someone enters into their cloud space in the cloud, already it's encrypted. And you'll find that even if you get there, you'll not be able to get any data that is actually sitting there. So it's fairly secure. And then if you look closely, and in fact, there are many reports published by the cloud providers, they always have regular security assessments being done on them. Every time, and you'll find, and these reports are open and they're given to the public for them to scrutinize and assess which provider you want to use. So if you go to Amazon, for example, with the Amazon Web Services, they'll tell you that we have been tested 30 times this year, and these are the reports are coming from the users. If you go to Azure, they'll always give you that information also. There's always that assessment that is being done on the cloud that makes that particular cloud provider very secure in a way. The other thing that you also have to look at is what identity and access management that has been put in place by the service provider. It's not something that you just walk in and go straight to their cloud. There are certain levels that they offer, certain level of configuration that don't allow everyone to enter into a cloud. So even when you're given cloud access or where you're going to put your data in, that management is very it's very secure in the way they put that place. Okay. They also have what we call very nice backup and disaster recovery facilities, meaning that if the cloud service like Amazon, or so let me just use Microsoft. If Microsoft in South Africa is down, then the Frankfurt Microsoft cloud storage area is actually now taking over the data provision to your service. So there's always that security of things being backed up nicely. They also have a good disaster recovery plan. They also have a good way of making sure that the recovery services that they have are there. And they always publish all this. They'll always tell you that our cloud service is down, but we are actually moving you to another region as we continue trying to find out what's going on there. So to an extent, with all these certifications that are being done on the cloud, we can fairly say all the providers out there have a way of getting them very, very secure. I think the question coming from Uganda also is that if you want to solve the problem of your data going outside, try and talk to the providers. Let them bring the cloud to your country, and you'll have now all your data in that particular place, and you'll not run the risk of your data being shut down as you think it will be outside there in the cloud. Yeah. So I think I've tried to address some of the issues that are there.
Yeah. No, you have, Justus. Thank you very much. Maybe Pramesh also from private sector. What are some of the things that a lot of people are having challenges with, and also what would Uganda use to actually maybe advance the cause of cloud or otherwise to their governments?
So I'm probably not the best qualified because I think Phila is probably better suited to answer that question around cloud. I mean, the approach that we use, and I think it's more in the context, whether it's private sector or public sector for that matter, is that from a digital auditing perspective, you should be able to digitize auditing irrespective of whether you are on-prem, you're off-prem, hosted, managed service, or in the cloud. Obviously, you have the ideals, but the reality is every SAI sitting here has got a different set of circumstances. So the point I want to make is that don't let cloud become the only way you will digitize your audit. I want to comment on exposure, and I want to comment on the relevance of auditors, the question from Joseph, but let me first maybe on the cloud question.
Yeah, and it's such an important question, and it's so I like both answers, and the fact that cloud should not be a dependency for your digital transformation. Yes, it's a key part of digital transformation, but it should not be a dependency because otherwise we're not going to move. So in South Africa, we're fortunate in that we've got the big cloud providers, which is Microsoft and Amazon AWS, Amazon Web Services. They've got what we call data centers here. Both they've got a primary data center and a failover when should something go wrong. But it took a long time for them to come into the country. But what is very important, and I think that is what is coming from Kenya there, is that there needs to be legal frameworks in the country that say this is the type of data that cannot go outside of the country. For instance, if you look at banks, the South African Reserve Bank would say to you, you can put your internal data outside of the country, they don't care, as long as it is not in certain parts, in certain regions in the world, because in some regions of the world, the data that is on the cloud, the government and the security agencies of that country have got access to that data. And in some regions of the world, that is protected. So you're still protecting your data. But they would say client data cannot leave the borders of South Africa. And I know Mauritius also does that. So you would find that now you go on the cloud for your internal ERP systems, they can sit anywhere in the world. So you can use something like Workday, where the cloud, where the data center is sitting in Europe. But when it comes to the banking apps and the banking stuff, that data is sitting in South Africa. So data residency is very important. You need to have the legal frameworks that govern that, and then the internal policies within the SAI now. Because now you as a SAI, you look at all of this thing and say, what is my appetite in terms of where data should be sitting? Do I agree that internal ODT data can sit inside or can it sit outside? So it's frameworks, it's governance, compliance, and policies. And yeah, some of we can say cloud, our strategy here inside South Africa around cloud, it's called a multi-cloud strategy. We don't go locked into one vendor. We're using a number of vendors, service providers, but we're also building a private cloud where the data is sitting on-prem, but using cloud technologies on-prem. So it's that multi-cloud strategy. So there are many ways of skinning the cat. There's always a way.
Can you also maybe just reflect on the Eswatini question?
Sorry, I really wanted to add something on this cloud. I know one big organization here in South Africa that is investing millions, if not billions, into what they call a cloudification strategy. Now their cloudification strategy is multifaceted. There is on-premise cloud, and of course there is off-premise cloud. Remember, the cloud can either be private cloud, community cloud, or a public cloud. And I know, for example, in Uganda for sure, NITU has got a government cloud that they are running, where all the computers of the government are hosted in public, and they've got a good failover. But earlier on, Phila and I were discussing that IT people always have got the same view, but on cloud, I'm going to share a different view. And the different view here is coming, and I'll ask you a question. The people that are here, how many of you are on Gmail? Raise your hand if you're on Gmail. How many have got their own server on Gmail that is hosting their own emails at home? Now, so whatever kind of data that you're, and this is very controversial, I know, but that's reality. Your data is already sitting in the cloud somewhere in Gmail, whether you own it or not. And how many have shared Kanban information on Gmail here? Don't raise your name because you'll be fired. But you know the reality, right? How many are on Facebook? How many are sharing pictures on Facebook? Where is that data sitting? It's sitting somewhere in the cloud. My belief is that everything is already in the cloud, whether we want it or not. Let's go to another question. How many of us have shared data on WeTransfer? How many are using Google Drive? Where is that data being stored? I've shared megas, gigabytes and gigabytes on WeTransfer. Somebody is owning that data somewhere. So the philosophy that if we take our data somewhere and then someone would have access to it, they already have access to it, whether we want it or on it. The cloud is more secure than the local environment. So let's say my Ugandan colleague brothers, a server sitting somewhere on a table in Jinja, somewhere in Uganda, is more exposed than the data that is sitting with Amazon Web Service in Singapore. That's better security, they are more qualified. So whether the government says that no, our data has to be stay indoors, that's not reality. Reality is that that data is already there. And those people have got better ways of protecting the data than we do. I'll give you an example. Long back, if I were to go to Uganda with my presentation now, my presentation is 1 gigabyte. Long back, I would need 3 CDs or DVDs to carry that one presentation. Now I have got my data here on my which is one terabyte. If I was going to carry 10 or 20 CDs on the border of Uganda, they were not going to allow me. They were going to say, what is this? What data is there? Yeah. Now I carry that same data on this phone. They're not going to even stop me. So that data is crossing the borders already, whether we need or not. I know many organizations, they're using this email solution. So what is it called? Semantic, not semantic. The email solution that avoids
Mimecast.
Mimecast. Where is Mimecast based? Mimecast is based in San Francisco. So if the governor of another bank in Namibia sends an email and they've got a solution with Mimecast, that data is passing through San Francisco already. So for me, these frameworks, they are really more theoretically, but the data is already in the cloud. So let's take advantage of the cloud.
Thank you very much. I want to, since you are from talking, can you maybe reflect on the question of the new generations versus old generation? And I think maybe as you reflect on it, it maybe goes back to comment from Uganda, which talks about how can we ensure we provide right exposure. Yeah. And maybe as you are talking about that, in case you also have any other last words to the audience, ladies and gentlemen, Teach will be leaving us in the next 5 minutes. So he will not be with us for lunch, unfortunately, but he will still be engaging with us. So maybe you can just reflect on that question and any other last remarks.
So we have said reskilling is very important. So even, and the tone at the top. So whether the old generation, the new generation, I'm a digital advisor person in different regions, in different countries. But if I were to open my computer right now for you, I've got more than 26 websites that are opened on digital transformation, from McKinsey, from name whoever, World Economic Forum. I have to keep abreast every day. So even that generation, which is holding its head like this, we need to upskill. Upskill is very, very important. We need to make sure that we take someone like Sam Impupu, my Namibian guys would help me pronounce it very well. Sam Impupu, the current finance minister, is in that generation, but he has taken the initiatives to educate, to train himself. As a governor, he's the first governor that I have seen who was doing a thesis at Harvard University. You know what his thesis was on? His thesis was on cybersecurity. And his thesis was not only on cybersecurity, but it was on the biggest cybersecurity that has happened in the world, and that is Equifax, where 150 million records were stolen. So a governor of a country doing a thesis on cybersecurity. So there's that need to educate, to retrain, whether it's robotics, the current generation, whether it's the gray-haired, non-gray-haired, can still train and regenerate their skills in the cloud computing, social media, artificial intelligence. It's still doable. So you mentioned something about how do we get exposure. There is no doubt about it. In Namibia, there is a culture that is called the Himbas of Namibia. And the Himbas of Namibia is a certain very important group of people. They believe in what is called Ubuntu. Now, I will leave you guys to research about the group and the Ubuntu that we're talking about. But once there is need to change the culture into what is called a digital culture. So every time, every organization, we can measure our culture on digitalization and our temperature or our measurement on how digital we are. So exposure is very important. That's why as an international board member of ISACA in Chicago, what we have said is that encourages that companies should expose their executives and even junior executives to go to these organizations that maybe visit Facebook, visit Google. Okay, let's just even give a simple solution. What can stop the Auditor General of Uganda to visit Amazon Web Service South Africa? What can stop the Auditor General of South Africa to go to Cape Town or even at Waterfall to go and see how cloud computing is operating? That is good exposure. So the exposure is very, very important because you can only go to the extent of how you are exposed. You cannot go, you give example of building the toilet because that's how the person was, to the extent the person was exposed, right? So that exposure is very critical. Go to Mimecast. I like the fact that you visited Oracle in San Francisco. I have been to San Francisco, the security conference, more than 4 times. Because even me as a digital person, I have to learn, I have to reskill. The skills that were very important last year, in this year, they are not important. So you have to continuously upskill, you have to relearn, and you also have to unlearn as well. There are things that we thought were very important technologically a few years ago, which are no longer important. We have to unlearn. Last but not least, someone came to me and says, Mr. Zororo, I see you were using your computer to do your presentation. You're using your phone as your clicker. Now, I had to unlearn myself. For 3 years, I had to unlearn Windows operating system to a Mac OS operating system. It took me 3 years to disembark from Windows in 2013. For 3 months, I was moving with 2 computers, one with Windows based and one Mac OS based. When I see my skill is hitting a block on Mac OS, I'll go back to Windows, create a document. Until now, I can now operate efficiently on Mac OS. With those words, I want to thank you for the opportunity. It was a great honor to be here.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it was nice. It's always good to interact with you. I don't know if we even have Rwanda colleagues who are online. I think one of the times that you had a presentation in Rwanda, one of the colleagues was like, "Have you met this man?" And I was like, "No, several times, but he's a difficult man to get." It was a pleasure being with you here, and we hope that we can continue engaging with you. Thank you very much. Let's give him another round of applause. There is still a question which went to AGSA, which is how did the financial and compliance auditors get on board? I think, how did you actually maybe go on the journey with the rest of the team? As you are maybe talking about that, maybe can you also just discuss how the financial auditors or how the SAI itself has actually been embracing digitalization while still delivering on SAI mandate?
Okay, no, thank you very much. And that's also a very good question. I really liked, just to close on this one, I really liked this ethos of learning and unlearning, because technology is ever changing. And if one doesn't expose themselves to this new technology, you don't really get left behind, but sometimes you feel that you know, there's more that you can do. So this exposure, reading, going to conferences and visiting other people that have walked the path really assists. It helps a lot. We attend quite a few conferences, and in fact, in December, I'm visiting one of the insurance companies here in South Africa called Old Mutual, because they've done a lot around robotic process automation. I'm going to learn from them in terms of what they've done around robots. So it's very important to learn and unlearn. So the journey, how the journey has been, it's just starting. You know, our journey is just starting. Our strategy was signed off last year. But if you look at digital transformation, and we're having this discussion during lunch, during a tea break, that sometimes we tend to, you know, be a little bit apprehensive around digital transformation because we think it's a new thing. I argue that it is not a new thing. We had mainframes that were big as this building in the old days, you know, but they replaced a certain process that was manual. So that was digitization. There was a time when we only had personal computers that were big and you couldn't take them around with you or work from home. And then we had laptops. That was digitization. There was a time when we had the Nokia, the big Nokia that Tisha was talking about, that could not access the internet. And now we've got smartphones and tablets. That is digitization. So when you think about it, it's a never-ending story. And I think when you look at it like that, it becomes less daunting. You understand that it's a journey that we will never arrive, but we will keep on improving. So we have also just started our journey. We've got a very old audit software application, and we are replatforming the business, putting in a completely new audit software application. When we implemented that software application 20 odd years ago, it was digital transformation. But now it doesn't serve the purposes of the business anymore. So now we are on the journey of digital transformation. We are moving that. So it's a journey. And what is absolutely critical, and I can't stress this enough, how you take the business along is this change management, because the tech works. We are not going to be implementing a SAIs technology that has never been used anywhere. We implement technology that has been used somewhere. What matters is that how do we ensure that this technology satisfies our business demand and our business objectives, and how us as employees, as auditees, as auditors, can actually use this technology. So ours is a journey that has started. Very excited that we've got our first robot. We call it Imbeu. It helps with daily deposits, and it has made the life of the person who was doing that much better. We are implementing another one that is, we call it a GL bot, that distributes GLs. This person who was doing this work had to distribute this GL on the 7th of every month. It did not matter whether it was a Sunday or a Saturday or a Monday or a Friday. She had to do it. If the 7th falls on a Sunday, guess what? She must log in from home and do it. Now you've got a robot that is doing this thing automatically. What it does now, it gives this person an opportunity to do something else and learn new skills and be able to go to church and be able to serve and be able to cook lunch and have a braai or barbecue with a family on a Saturday. So robots are critical as well. So the journey, we are still on the journey. How we have included financial auditors and digitizing the audit environment is that we are fortunate in that I don't do audit. When you speak as auditors, you speak your audit language. I really, my hair,
What hair?
goes even further back because it's a very difficult language that I'm still trying to learn. So we've got a separate business unit that does that. They do that audit, and they do the IT audit themselves. Of course, we support them with the tools and stuff like that that we put in. I'm having discussions around them now, around them really getting to understand artificial intelligence, because guess what? It's being used out there. They must have the ability to audit the stuff that is coming out of AI as well. I'm not sure if that has answered your question. Okay, thank you. So maybe then back to the question around how we are embracing digital transformation and digitalization whilst we are delivering the mandate. As I said, it has been very important for us that the tone gets set from the top, and that we have somebody that is responsible for digital transformation sitting at the executive committee. Now, that is our own method in which we have done it. We wanted to ensure that we elevate digital transformation at an executive level. But of course, there are many ways in which you can choose to skin that. And we have also ensured that digitization itself is not something that it's not a sideshow. It's not something that is running on the side. It is there to solve real, tangible business problems. And we are implementing this thing that's called the benefits realization framework that says, I have digitized this process, and this is the benefit that this digitized process has given to the business. So that is absolutely critical for us to do that. That is how we have handled it. And I know this is very strange coming from somebody who's a chief technology officer. I've got a serious dislike of technical adventures. My team would tell you that I say, don't bring in technology into the business that does not solve a business problem. Because the minute we do that, we lose credibility in the business. Whatever technology we bring in must solve business problems. And I think in that way, you ensure that there is that alignment in the business. Because there's a lot of technology there. You can implement technology for anything, but if it doesn't solve the real problems of the business, then we are on a hiding to nothing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As we are looking at getting questions, I've seen Panduleni's question from Namibia. Thank you very much. We recognize, I think it's been answered on cloud, as well as the other anonymous question on cloud. So I want to maybe just pose a question to Justus, and still, colleagues, we are getting questions. What would be maybe a typical roadmap to digital transformation in SI? And maybe before you answer that, Justus, I think we've been talking about opportunities of digital transformation. What are also maybe some of the pitfalls that an organization that is going on this journey would probably maybe expect to face?
And let me start with the opportunities, and then maybe I go to the pitfalls before I go back to the roadmap that you need to put in place. One of the things that digitization and digital transformation can bring is that we might be able to streamline all our audit processes that we have. Once we have done that, then that means that we don't have to rethink how we are doing our audits. That's already been streamlined, and the audits will be okay. They'll become more efficient in the process, and at the end of the day, the audits will be done far much quicker than that have been there before. The other thing that digital transformation will bring is that we'll leverage on data analytics and also things to do with enhancing the quality of the audits that are there can be put in place when we come to digitization. The other thing that also we need to take up with us an opportunities, maybe look at how we can monitor all our government processes on real time. because most of the time you'll find that if we don't have a digital transformed SAI, we might run the risk of having going to the auditee at the end of the financial year. But we can also monitor this on real time. So that makes the auditing become more quicker and the issues being sorted out. We also will be able to increase our transparency in terms of the way we communicate the audit findings, because with the digital transformed SAI, we can use things like social media, we can use any other kind of event. Like, for example, if we have a robot as a bot maybe looking at our reports, if something has already been released by the AG, for example, and you have a bot that now tells the public through social media that this has been released, you don't have to depend on someone to actually do this on the side. Also, with the automation, we will be having, or rather with the transformation, we can enhance our collaboration, especially on with other institutions, trying to find out how things are done. In terms of the pitfalls, as we look at this, the pitfalls of digital transformation I know there are many. One of them we will look at might happen is we might have cyber risks come into place because we adopt tools. The more we become more vulnerable to cyber attacks, data breaches, and also we compromising sensitive data, especially if you're not secured very well. The digital transformation also brings the problem of having a skills gap. Having a digitally surveyed place requires a lot of skills being put into it. So trainings, having new technologies, adopting new changes to do that involves a lot of skill being put in place. So that's a risk that the pitfalls, one of the pitfalls that we get. The other thing that maybe I might get out of is on data quality. If we don't know how to sort out the data issues that we have within our SAIs, then we might have the quality of data coming into the system that we have not being right, especially if you have to connect to data sources which are out there, which have maybe personal data or they have sensitive data. That quality might not be very good when it comes into it might be poor in terms of putting things inside. We also run risk of privacy concerns. Remember, everyone is trying to also secure their personal information into the system, and you're getting data maybe from other people. That can be a problem if it lands in the wrong app. So sensitive data, how we can deal with things of hackings into our systems. That's a pitfall that we need to think about. The other thing that maybe that digital transformation can bring as a problem is the cost. It's very expensive to migrate from what we already have into something else. Then that means that the digital transformation is not cheap. It's very expensive, and they need to. Most of our SAIs don't have that capacity in terms of resources to move that direction as fast as possible. So we might find ourselves saying we can't afford being in the cloud because the subscription service is very expensive to us. And those are, I think, if you work in the IT space, trying to justify the move to the cloud sometimes is also very hard because the cost itself is a bit prohibitive to most of our SAIs that we have in Africa. The other pitfall is that we'll now start relying on technology, and we've seen even from the talk within in this meeting, you'll find that the auditees that we have are not on a technology platform. But sometimes you find that if we all become digitally transformed, then we'll rely more on technology, and it will be hard to bring in that non-technology issues into our systems. And then finally, one of the things that we need to also look at is on the legal issues. How are we legally structured when it comes to trying to digitally transform? Because you'll find that if you're relying on technology which is not sitting within the organization, how are we going to now deal with someone who's bringing that technology to us? How are we dealing with legal issues related to maybe data security, data privacy? All those are also things we have to look at. Maybe to answer the last question maybe that you asked is on what's the roadmap that we might think about when you're coming up with a digital transformation roadmap. But before that, maybe I can just say something about this. And this was something that I picked out when I was trying to look into the topic, is that there are 5 things that maybe, and I think some of them were touched by in the previous talk. One of the things that there are 5 things that we need to think about when you think about digital transformation. One, the digital mindset of the leaders of the organization have to be in place. If they are not thinking about digital transformation, they're not starting, because you'll end up having just an IT system or IT or digital processes being put in place. And the strategy that is being developed in the organization should actually focus on that particular process of digital transformation, meaning that even the strategy that is being developed needs to think about it in a digital way. So that means that the leaders who are now designing this particular process need to guide us, and they're supposed to guide the business with a digital transformation in mind. The other thing is that we need to also communicate to all our stakeholders, especially our internal stakeholders, our business customers, our auditees. Everyone has to know that this SAI is actually now going to another transformational level, and it needs to be communicated to them so that they know that when they're bringing their data, for example, to us, they're going to bring it into a digitally transformed area, and they need to have it in a certain format. We also need to think about the third thing we also need to think about is the culture of innovation. If we don't innovate in what we do, and especially when you're now going to ask the auditor, how do you want me to help you? Then they give you a clear picture of what they want, and then you as a technical leader maybe can think for them how this can be achieved on a digital platform. So you need to think about that, how to innovate on this. Then when you're now putting the technology, and I liked the way it was brought out just earlier, that when you're bringing in technology into the organization, it's not as I want to have that technology to being brought in. No, it should be brought in to solve a process, and I think that has been alluded in the talk that were there. And that when you're bringing in new technology to this space, then you need to think about how to deal with it. The final thing that we need to think about, especially when you're trying to deal with the transformation, is when you're doing your data analytics and then analyzing what you're trying to do in the organization, let's not focus on the outputs. Let's focus on the outcomes of that digitalization process that you're going to put in place. And that way we're able to now think about the digital transformation. And just to briefly just go through the roadmap, one, we need to think about the planning. You assess your planning, you get the current state of how you, and this is now the roadmap, Bob, I'm trying to put in place. You need to look at the current state, how you are, the skills you have, the strengths you have within the organization, and then now think about data. You need to also define the goals that you need to sort out with the digital transformation being put in place. You have to take into account things like the ethical implications of digital transformation that you're going to put in place. And then the SAI actions that are going to be sorted out by this, and the decisions that can be used when this has been put in place. You also have to, and one thing that is very clear, we cannot digitize everything. We cannot transform everything within the organization, but we can identify specific areas that we can fully do the digital transformation in the organization. And we need to now look at it in two things. One, looking at a way of changing the performance of the organization and the capabilities that it can bring in place. That's one of the things. The second, you need to think about the data strategy. I think I alluded to this earlier on. And the other thing we need to also look at as a third issue in your roadmap is your technology integration. How are you going to integrate this technology into the business? We also have to look at how scalable this technology will be, and also vis-a-vis how advanced will this technology? Because if you bring a very advanced technology into being, then you'll have an issue in terms of how are you going to integrate this into the system that we have to put in place. We also have to think about the training and development of the SAI and how they're going to develop everyone within the SAI, meaning that you need to create a very comprehensive training program that will involve everyone, not only the IT people or the auditors, but everyone involved in the process of transformation, meaning that you have to, if you have to adapt to the new changes that are coming in, then all this have to be guided by a sort of a training or a learning development program that you're put in place. The other thing, and I think this is something that is all over, is that we need to have that continuous learning process. And it was alluded earlier by Zororo, and that I hope that name is slipping from me. That we need to learn and unlearn. So, the things that we used to do in IT those days need to be removed, so that we now start thinking about a change leader. Things like change management need to be trained to everyone in the office, so that they know that we are changing from one process to another. The other thing that we also need to think about is how is this digital transformation going to change the way we collaborate in work, the way we communicate in work, what operational efficiency is going to bring, and how is it going to help the organization. And lastly, and not least, is there's what we call the strategic partnership that we need to create with the providers of these technologies and these particular issues. Meaning that if something has worked in a particular area and is being implemented by a particular technology provider, we need to understand how that particular thing is done. If it's a technology which is being put in place, let them come and install it for us and show us how this works before we start thinking of doing it ourselves and maybe we don't have the full knowledge of how to do it. So in a nutshell, I think if for AFROSAI, those are the steps and the things that we need to think about before we start looking into that. And finally, maybe we need to—
Justus, can I maybe cut you short there? I know you've said finally like 3 times. I will come back to you. There is something that I wanted Pramesh to just maybe comment on. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's fortunately, Justus has already preempted to say what needs to be there in place in an organization to actually digitally transform. So from maybe government, even from where you've actually seen transformation happen, Pramesh, and as you answer this, we are also answering the other unanswered question from Anonymous, who's actually talking about digital is hard to implement, as most data is not digitally automated. How do you actually deal with half automated data, executive approval on paper while certain things are in the system? So what needs to be in place in an organization to actually walk this journey of digitalization?
No, I think thanks, Fredrick, and I think you're quite right. I think Justus preempted a little bit, but I want to mention 6 points. I think specifically that tries to kind of create the foundation for an organization, particularly a supreme audit institution, to start this journey and be conducive for this journey. The first is, Phila emphasized it, Teach emphasized it, Justus emphasized it. You've got to have tone of the top, leadership buy-in, really right from the top. In the case of the AG, for example, the Auditor General herself, the Deputy Auditor General, the entire EXCO, very much behind this focus on digitization. And I'm glad Phila's pointed out, it's not digitization for the sake of digitization. Many organizations that we've worked with, even in the private sector, artificial intelligence, blockchain, this becomes buzzwords, and technologies are shiny objects. Everyone comes up with an app or something. That's for the sake of digitization. The benefit realization part is part of the tone at the top. Second point is around collaboration. Justus talked about funding and resourcing. I mean, let's be realistic here. Most of our supreme audit institutions don't have sufficient resources to embark on this on big scale alone. You have to, and I think SAIs are well positioned, and AFROSAI is well positioned. You have to look at how can we collaborate as different supreme audit institutions, and so that we don't reinvent the wheel, so that we co-develop, so that we share capability, we share training and capacity building. And again, we're fortunate in the world of SAIs that we have these regional groupings like AFROSAI or AFROSAI-E that can coordinate this and make this real. Funding on your own, as Phila will tell you, it's very, 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 very expensive. The third point is around change management, and we spoke about it, but change management specifically emphasizing the point that Joseph made, I think he stepped out, around how do you not make people feel redundant? Change management in a way it says we take everyone with you. And anecdotally, you know, if you think about many years ago, you spoke about the big computer boxes, was it IBM that came up with the big computers we all used to use? But we also never had internet, right? We had to learn how to then use internet. And when I left professional services, the big firms as a partner, and I decided trying to figure out what I wanted to do, most of what I do today is around grassroots level interaction, community development. That's where I spend most of my time. But if you go into any township in South Africa, even the gogo that looks after children and makes bread on the side is using a smartphone and is learned how to use a smartphone and can do some element of transfer, some element of at least accessing WhatsApp to send a message. There is a learning that took place there. If you look at coding and robotics in South Africa as an example, the curriculum that's prescribed is at grade R level. So what grade R is what? 5 years old kids, 4 or 5 years old kids who are learning basic coding and robotics already. There's no way that we sitting in this room here, even at my age of 50, like Joseph was bragging, being the elephant in the room, there's no way we can't learn the most simplest basic elements to keep us relevant. And it takes an effort on our side to go and research the hundreds and thousands of websites and courses that are available for free. You can go into Coursera, for example, and you can download a course for free and you can get a certificate at a basic level of coding or robotics. I'm not a technology person, but I could do that. Same way. So I think you take everyone with you on this journey. Point number 4 is around what we spoke about previously. If there's a willingness at the top, there's this understanding by everyone that we're all going on this journey, make a start. Choose a pilot. Do what I love what Kenya has done, and where you've decided to at least take 200 million transactions. It's a start, because that little bit of successes and learnings, it could be failures, brings momentum to the system. Everyone says it's possible. Run little competitions, you know, become a push innovation big time, and that's a topic on its own. But just make a start somewhere. Something small, pilot, do it, share it, and disseminate. Point 5, I think we must change. There's a mindset change that's required, and that is, we have got to make everyone in the SAI understand that, you know, you've got to change to becoming data-led in everything we do. Data, what do you call it? New gold. Data, the new gold. 100% agree with it. I see it as the heart of your system, heart of digitization. You've got to change the mindset. In what I'm doing today, is it data-led? If not, why not? How can it become data-led? So that mindset of being data-led in everything we do, and you quickly realize that electronic working papers, as an example, is not being digitized. It's an important part. You have to have it, but it's not enough alone. The other element about being data-led, which really worries me as a citizen, just a few days ago in the South African news, I heard about the Auditor General in South Africa addressing questions to Parliament about her staff being threatened. Now, I used to be in this organization 15, 12, 13 years ago. We never had a single threat in those days. I know these threats are happening more and more, and it's always happened in other regions as well. When you report something, we want to, on one hand, as AGs, SAIs, we want to do more impactful stuff, which means we're going to rattle the cage more. But we can't, on the other hand, have our staff being threatened. Data and the tools that support data takes away the individual persona and allows us in future to be able to say, it's our robots, it's our tools, it's our capability. You can access this yourself. So citizens are able to access information that's non-threatening to the auditors who are providing the information. When you start talking that kind of language, you start creating and interest in the organization about wanting to be data-led. The final point is just also sort of changing to this similar to collaboration, but not quite, and that's about lift, shift, and share. Don't, as supreme or institution, there's only one of you in the country. You're supreme. It's only one of you. You're not like in the private sector where Deloitte is threatened what PwC is going to do as a comparative advantage, and then EY wants to jump on them. You don't have that here. You have a very big advantage to be relevant by sharing the capability you've developed, sharing the training, learning from others, embracing it, and shifting it to where that can also be shared and interfaced with other stakeholders. So think about your donors. Why can't donors be given a username, Phila, and they access your system in time and able to get some assurance themselves from the tools that you've implanted for donor assurance? Why can't citizens get onto some kind of portal where they're able to interact with the information because you've been data-led? It's all sitting there. It's just a matter of how it gets curated for different stakeholders. So lift, shift, and share is going to make you relevant. But if you have that, then I think you're set up for successful digitization.
Thank you. Lift, shift, and share.
Lift, shift, and share.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to take one last question from the audience here before I ask my colleagues here to sum up. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take an exception. Can I take two? Okay, I've had only gentlemen here. I'll make an exception. I'll also get a third comment from the lady there. Quick ones.
Thank you, Mr. Bobo. I'm Premier Fitihindi from Side Rwanda. From the presentation, I can understand that Mr. Phila told about that South Africa is at an advanced level of digitalization. From that, I would address my question to him. If we can share the main challenge they faced during the digitalization process so that the rest of the SAIs can consider those challenges or risk while setting or implementing the digitalization strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. You said we should start from somewhere, and my side from Sierra Leone, we've started already because the SAI is working on procuring an automated system to start doing an audit in that direction. But I want to know, going this digital, what infrastructures are actually needed to ensure that this digitization is ensured? Because in my country, electricity is a challenge. Power supply is intermittent. The internet service providers are just, I don't know how to say it, but you buy data and you can't access internet. I don't know. So it's a challenge. So what do we do? What infrastructures are actually needed to ensure that we go digital in terms of?
Thank you very much. And I'll take the last question from audience.
My name is Faith from SAI Kenya. Whereas I know that one size does not fit all, but what would be the best practice in a scenario where there are already like probably 3 units that have been established that are separate? For example, we have data science, that deals with the big data. And as you have said, not supporting the audit, but enabling the auditors. Then we have ICT, and we also have innovation and professional practices. So in a scenario where now you want to introduce digital transformation, how do these 3 units collaborate together so that there is no duplication, but at the same time, they're able to forge forward, each knowing their responsibility, but also adopting the digitalization? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Can I have Phila respond to the challenges? But as you talk about the challenges, Phila, I want you to maybe also talk about how you've actually done prioritization in AGISAM, and also give any closing remarks that you might have. So I want your answers to be short and sweet.
Short and sweet. And I'm not a tall man, so I'll be very so I think the main challenge is, as I said, technology is not the problem. It could be how you employ the technology internally, looking at issues around infrastructure and all of that. So, but I'm sure we will talk about that just now. So for me, it has been change management. It has been ensuring that we align our strategy with the business so that it's not technology for the sake of it. And we move with the requisite speed, because what I found is that business is hungry for this digital transformation, but we've got to move with the right speed so that we can consume this technology, because too much change too quickly also builds white elephants in the business, because then people don't use it. I think those are the overall challenge. And then I think the big one is also skills. You've got to make sure that you've got skills. And then you said, I must just talk to how prioritization has happened. So I think governance of digital transformation is also very, very important. And how we govern on our side, we've got an IT steering committee, we've got the audit committee that I'm accountable to. I sit at EXCO that I'm accountable to. I give feedback on a monthly basis in terms of how we are doing on this digital transformation journey. But what is even more important than those is that the prioritization of what is required is not a responsibility of the chief technology only. I work hand in hand with the business. We agree with the business to say, these are your priorities. Otherwise, if they allow me to determine the priorities myself, I'm just gonna be putting robots all over the place, whereas that's not what they need at the moment. So that prioritization with the business is absolutely, absolutely critical. There's something that we call automation anxiety, and it is real because we get scared, and it's human nature. Change is difficult. That automation anxiety is important and it's real. And how we solve that is this alignment between us as technology and the business. And then maybe my closing remarks, it's stuff that we've touched on. Partnerships are important. There are people who have walked the path, and they know some of the technology better than we do. That's why Pramesh is here. We work closely with him. He's a partner on some of the stuff that we're doing. He goes narrow and deep. He specializes on what he has done. So we're using his technology there. Then as colleagues, I think we've got to learn from each other. I think we cannot underestimate the importance of building platforms where we can share knowledge together and walk the path together, because we can all learn from each other. Then as an individual, you learn and relearn and unlearn old habits. We've got to continue improving our digital IQ, and we've got to demystify technology, because it's not scary. It looks scary, but you get a phone. Nobody teaches you how to use your iPhone or your Samsung. You learn, you learn it by yourself, because you have demystified and you understand what this technology can do for you. Apply technology to solve business problems. And I really like the example there around innovating in our own small spaces, and you innovate, implement, you move. That way you get to do this. And then I think it's as I said, it's very important to govern digital transformation, and you must hold the IT guys very close to you. Otherwise, they will give you stuff that you don't need.
Thank you very much, Phila. For the second two questions, I also want to maybe promote use of our app. I will maybe ask Pramesh to actually reflect and give us responses on the last two questions. And I hope we'll actually go to the app and actually see that. So maybe Pramesh, any parting shots, and maybe as you do that, you can maybe talk about what you guys do and also the presentations we have outside.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Fredrick. And I think the questions around infrastructure and really best practices. Infrastructure is again, I think the way you should approach it is horses for courses. The infrastructure and the capacity you need depends on what you want to do. Now, in some SAIs, for example, you're making use already of the state infrastructure. And from our initial understanding and exploring just the landscape, there seems to be sufficient capacity to do what SAIs need to do at the very basic level of digitizing audit within that infrastructure. In other SAIs, though, where most of the things are in-house or looking at going cloud, for example, that will impact on how and what infrastructure you need. It also depends on the type of technologies and solutions that you implement. So if you're going not on trying to pull in all of the data into your SAI, but rather connecting to the data and pulling just the analytics, the insights, the visualizations, you obviously require less capacity. So it's a difficult thing to put one blanket response to. You have to look at it on case by case basis, but it's not insurmountable at all. If you decide to go with your own, like on premises, and Phila will tell you, the cost of infrastructure can be significant. So you've got to look at how best you manage that. I think when it comes to best practice, when you're talking about the question from Kenya around all of the different players, it's excellent. And again, it talks directly to change management. So a live case right now, whereas we are piloting a digital audit at one of the SAIs, the response immediately becomes, but if I stop doing what I'm doing, I'm irrelevant. What am I going to do? You're going to get that as you embark on this journey. 100% you're going to get that. And so I think the way we see it, the best practice is you got a certain new level of general skill that everyone, every auditor, whether you're a performance auditor, regularity, finance, everyone, it becomes the minimum skills that you require. And unfortunately, that means a bit of a general upliftment because we're not there. So everyone needs to be at a certain level of being able to just write a small script as to how this procedure must be executed. But then you're going to have specialists. And the opportunity is that particularly the likes of IT auditors and the CATS specialists, the opportunity is for them to become and remain specialists in digital auditing. Because you still need advanced coding, advanced data management skills, for example. So those two will coexist. I don't see any issue with those two. Innovation, the final point around what you raised, innovation is critically important to keep everyone on their toes and exploring what else can be done. But innovation, like technology, can't exist to provide shiny objects. The business case, the solutionist thinking behind innovation has to be challenged all the time. You need governance for innovation as you would have for ICT as well, or for technology as well. Same kind of thing. I think my closing remark and I know we're out of time, just around, in fact, my dream for a Supreme Audit Institution is that we have this philosophy of data being everywhere, for one, and how we then harness it. We sit as Supreme Audit Institutions on the most amount of data that the private sector has to pay for. We have no reason not to consume external data sources. By that I mean data that is outside of the department that you're auditing. So why can't you use home affairs information if you're auditing a municipality? Nothing prevents us as Supreme Audit Institution to do it. And the more data sources we can consume, the more rich the insights we provide back to stakeholders. The more we can deal with fraud risk, the more we can deal with data quality, et cetera, et cetera. So my dream is for that. My dream is simply because I grew up in the Supreme Audit Institution, just my first professional experience, my best one. And I never could understand why Supreme. I just thought it's a nice name given to auditors. We're Supreme because we have to be at the forefront of everything we do. A few years ago, I can tell you now, private sector in many respects, in the auditing profession, was playing catch up with many Supreme Audit Institutions. The way, the methodology, the way, if you think about value for money, performance audit, integrated reporting, never existed in the private sector. Came from Supreme Audit Institutions. We've now fallen behind significantly. My dream is that we restore, by using data and digital, to become Supreme Audit Institutions that lead the auditing profession.
Thank you. Justus, just say hello, bye to the team. Thank you very much. Okay.
I've been instructed hello and bye. But I'll just say one thing about digital, just the last parting shot. According to Business Consulting Group, they say that around only 30%, and this is a very scary statistic, that only 30% of all digital transformation achieve their business outcomes. So even when we are doing all these things that we're doing, there are many things that we're not doing right, especially when we're doing our digital transformation. So we need to think clearly on how people have actually managed, and the things that we need to do so that we don't fall into the pitfalls of not achieving our outcomes. I wish I could say more, but thank you very much for the opportunity to address you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday we started off with the state of the region, what are the things that we need to put in place. We also looked at the building blocks. This has been one of the building blocks that we need to look at based on where we are, how we are introspecting on the aspect of really walking this journey or the road to digitalization. So we have looked at aspects of, yes, what strategies we actually need to have when it comes to this digitalization. I think this is very important. We actually need to have a deliberate strategy. Having no strategy is not a strategy. At least even having a strategy maybe to be passive, yes, it is a strategy, at least it is there. It's important that we have this strategy. We should be deliberate about our digitalization. And I think it's something that we really need to start walking our talk. I think all of us have been saying, yes, the world is changing. We are living in the new industrial revolution, and where we're talking about data-driven and so on. I think it's high time that as SAIs, we actually became deliberate. We started actually walking this talk. So yes, this has been the building block on digitalization with SAIs. And like we have the theme, let us as SAIs move. Thank you very much. We are going to break for lunch now and resume the next session at 1:30. Please, bon appetit. And thank you very much to the audience that joined us online. Thank you.